Mass extinction. Extinction, first let's start with that, is the total disappearance of a species from Earth, or when we can no longer find any representative of any species on Earth, of a particular species on Earth, then that species has been extinct. Now, extinction is of two types. We have natural extinctions and we have man-made extinction. In this case of man-made extinction, we'll be talking in another slide of the 6th era of extinction. Natural extinctions usually occur at a very slow rate. It doesn't occur very fast. Okay. And while a species is getting extinct naturally, usually it is as much time that is taken for the creation of another new species. So they occur more or less at the same pace. While a species is fading out of time, another species is being created, so that there's always some kind of balance in nature. Now, mass extinction is different from extinction. I think I explained that in another slide. With mass extinction, we see the total disappearance, where the total disappearance of many species massively within a short geological period. So it doesn't take much time. In geological timescale kind of concept, a few million years is a short instant. It might be long for us, but geological timescale wise, it is a short instant. So in a few million years, we are not supposed to have many species just vanishing, but it just occurs at some of those times when we have a massive loss of so many species. So that's what we call mass extinction. So far, there have been naturally, we look at naturally, so far there have been 5 major mass extinction, because the 6th one that we are experiencing now in our epoch, the Holocene Epoch, is caused by humans. The earliest known mass extinctions occurred about 439 million years ago, and the cause of this was a drop in sea levels. When the sea levels dropped, they did so because of the formation of glaciers. You know, for glaciers to form, it is water, for ice to form, it is water that is being collected and put in one block. So where does the water come from? It comes from the seas. It means as we are collecting, the level of water is decreasing, and the block of ice will form with massive amounts of water, and the sea level will drop. When now the glaciers start to melt due to global warming as we see today, or any other factor, when the glaciers start to melt, the sea levels will rise again. And when they rise again, what will happen? They will overflow everywhere. They will flood everywhere, because when the sea levels had dropped, many organisms started inhabiting the land that was left bare because of the drop of water. And when they were living there, they already started living there for so many million years, and many other species were produced. Now when the glaciers melt again, the sea level rises, it now floods everything, destroying and killing every life form. Now the second mass extinction that occurred about 364 million years ago doesn't have a known cause, so we don't know what really caused it, but it was just noticed that within that geological time scale, many species went extinct. The third one, which is among the only 2 mass extinctions that will be of very much great interest to us in this section, the third one occurred about 250 million years ago, and there are many hypotheses about it, because we don't know exactly what happened, but from some evidence, we suspect that it could have been a comet or an asteroid, rocks flying into space, that must have impacted the Earth, or a volcanic flood, volcano that erupted and flooded a whole piece of area. The fourth mass extinction occurred about 199 million years ago to 214 million years ago. Now, it was caused by volcanic eruptions that released a huge amount of lava, and this lava, understand, it's a great deal of heat that led to global warming. It means globally temperatures were rising, and temperatures were rising and becoming too much for organisms who had already adapted to the temperatures of the environments where they were flourishing. If the environmental temperatures of their habitats where they live in rose above what they can cope with, then globally many species will get extinct because of that increase in average temperature. The fifth mass extinction occurred about 65 million years ago. I mentioned the third one, and now this is the fifth one. These are the two that we'll focus our attention on. Just like with the third one, there are many hypotheses around it because we are not too clear about the causes. But we suspect that it was due to an impact, an asteroid impact or a comet, because we see their prints, the prints of the impact at the Yucatan Peninsula in the Gulf of Mexico. Or it could have been caused by a gradual change or a gradual climate change. And organisms had their climates around them changing to levels that they could not cope with and died massively. Or it could have been due to volcanic eruptions, which again could bring global warming or create layers of ash in the air that would prevent sunlight from reaching the earth for a couple of months, such that organisms around that area will be dying massively. Like I said earlier, of all the 5 mass extinctions that we've looked at, we are only concerned about these two that stand out. The third one that occurred 250 million years ago, and the fifth one that occurred 65 million years ago. The third one was the most serious one because it witnessed the disappearance of the greatest number of species. About 90% of all species that lived back then went extinct. That was the most serious mass extinction. But that was not the most famous one, because the one we are more used to, even if you don't do life sciences, the one you've surely mostly heard about will be the fifth mass extinction that occurred about 65 million years ago. And why is it famous? Because we also know so much about the dinosaurs. We know that at some point they went extinct. That is the time when they went extinct, during the fifth mass extinction. That makes it very famous. Okay, like I said earlier, the most serious mass extinction was the third one, where about 250 that occurred about 250 million years ago, which saw the extinction of about 90% of all species. It means of all species that were present on Earth at that time, only about 10% survived. That's why today, at present times, we say that of all species that have ever walked the surface of Earth, only about 1% is represented today. So all the diversity we see today forms only about 1% of all what actually had lived on this planet today. Quite very intriguing. So of all those species that got extinct at that time, 84% of them were of marine origin. They spent their lifetime in marine environments like oceans and seas, and 70% of them were land species, which included organisms like plants, insects, and vertebrates. The dinosaurs came on Earth or appeared or evolved on Earth about 245 million years ago. That was during the Triassic period. And during the Jurassic period, that's when their numbers exploded. That's when they flourished, and they dominated the Earth around that time. They dominated the land. Some of them were even able to fly, while some of them were even adapted to an aquatic life, living in water. During the Jurassic times, birds and mammals also existed, so they cohabited, or they coexisted with dinosaurs. And the dinosaurs didn't live long. They got extinct very quickly, about 10 million years. They live only for about 10 million years. That's not in geological time scale concept. 10 million years is a very short period of time. So the extinction occurred about 65 million years ago. During that time, about 16 marine families and 47%, that's 16% marine families, 47% marine general, and 18% of land vertebrates also became extinct during that same time. For the fifth mass extinction that occurred about 65 million years ago, like I said, scientists are not clear about the cause of it, but these are what they assume could have been the cause of it: a sharp drop in temperature, and the fact that the water of the seas evaporated and receded, such that there was not much water available to support especially marine life and even to support terrestrial life. Now, as the causes are not very clear, but these are those hypotheses, many of the plants during that time of the fifth extinction died out. It means that as plants are the producers, if plants are not available, then the consumers also get nothing. So it led to the death of so many dinosaurs. When they investigate fossils that were formed during the fifth extinction, they find, interestingly, iridium. Iridium is very scarce, but then it was found in a layer of clay from sites that were excavated by archaeologists. So usually iridium is found mostly in meteorites, outer space rocks, and not very much found on Earth. It therefore means that the iridium that was found in that layer of clay by these archaeologists came surely from outside space, carried by meteorites, carried by a comet, which hit the Earth. And when it hit the Earth, it destroyed so much, because these are huge masses of rocks. So it created a huge crater in the Caribbean Sea, and this overflowed the sea and made flooding all over the land, such that it killed so many life forms. Added to that, during that period, from scientific studies, they discovered that there were a lot of volcanic eruptions in India, and we know what the volcanic eruptions at this point can represent. So from the evidence that was found by these archaeologists, 3 hypotheses were formulated. The most commonly supported one is that one about the asteroid, the comet onto Earth, which led to global change, because these rocks come with a lot of gases, they come with a lot of heat, so it's easy for them to change the average temperature of the globe. The climate change now led to the mass extinction that was observed. The large crater that's found in the Caribbean Sea and the layer of iridium that was found, collected from the clay that was found at that time, support this hypothesis, because they give enough evidence to say that this is actually what surely would have happened. The second hypothesis that was derived from the work of the scientists is that of continental drift, the continental drift theory, where we have the continental plates moving away from each other. And like I told you, when they move, say for instance, they move from the equator to the southern hemisphere, it means the temperature at which these organisms were living when they were still at the equator, now that they are being transported to the southern hemisphere where there's not much sunlight and it's freezing, that temperature at the equator, which was warm, they will now be exposed to freezing temperatures that will lead to mass extinction, because they need too much time to be able to adapt to such temperature, time which they don't have, and they'll be dead before they even start adapting. So the continental drift led to climate change around the organisms which were transported to different places, and it led to their killing in masses. The third hypothesis that was adopted was the volcanic activity that occurred in India. And when this volcanic activity occurred, it produced a lot of ash. Because when you burn things, there's ash that is produced. With that force, that pressure, that explosion, ash particles were released into the air. And these particles remain into the air for a very long period of time. And within that time, they blocked out most of the sun's rays so that the sun doesn't heat up the earth anymore, because the earth, especially the surface of the earth, gains most of its heat from the sun. So the earth wasn't heated up for a very long time. It means the general temperature around the globe that time was very, very low and freezing temperatures. That in itself was enough to kill so many organisms. So that was the third hypothesis, and it led to the dying out of so many species because they could not adapt to the new low temperatures. For the fifth mass extinction, scientists accept all three theories to say it was caused by change in climate, which in turn was caused by the impact of the asteroid and volcanic activity. Now we've dealt with the 5 major mass extinctions, which were natural extinctions. The 6th major extinction is occurring in present times, the Holocene Epoch, and it is caused by humans. We are living in the 6th major extinction caused by us humans, human activities. Activities that include overexploitation of the environment. We build roads, we burn a lot of fossil fuels, we mine a lot, we pollute the environment. All of this is leading to massive mass extinction, such that it can be rated among the 5 mass extinctions that already occurred. And it's going to turn out surely to be one of the greatest mass extinction ever witnessed. Now, it is occurring at the Holocene Epoch, and that's why they call it also the Holocene extinction or the megafauna extinction. The reason why they call it the megafauna extinction is that it led or it saw or it witnessed the disappearance of the woolly mammoth. The woolly mammoth is a kind of very huge elephant that had very long fur or hair on its body with very, very long tusks. I'm sure you've watched the cartoon Ice Age. The elephant you find in that cartoon, one of the major characters, is a mammoth. And it also led to the extinction of the dodo, a kind of huge prehistoric bird that could not fly. Okay, all of them got extinct during the Holocene Epoch, during our times, when humans finally evolved. So here you have your terminologies, and you can read on your own. Those are your terminologies. You can read on your own. Thank you very much for attending. It was a pleasure.